Billy just moved it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good morning. I will call our July meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority to order. We have one item from the chairman. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to nominate you, Chris Kaufman, as the next chairman, and Barney Sentner as the next vice chairman.
Second.
Your job.
All right. Then we'll have a vote on the vice chairman. A voice vote.
Okay, all right. I move that we...
No, yay or nay?
Yay.
Yay, okay. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And then a vote on the chairman?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, Barney and I appreciate that. We've had a pretty exciting past year, and I think we've really got a even more exciting coming year with the streetcar coming online and the beginning with the convention center garage and everything we have going. So it's kind of an exciting year coming up, and I certainly appreciate all the trustees and the work they've done. I think it's a very, very wonderful trust. I don't get an opportunity to sit on all the other city trusts, but I think ours is the best. But okay. All right. Do we have any citizens to be heard? Yes, come to the podium, please, and give us your name and address.
Good morning. My name is Robert Campbell, address 1309 Salem Avenue, Edmond, Oklahoma, 73003, and I represent CNG Solutions. I would like to thank the board for allowing me time to address you in regard to the CNG fueling station that bid May 16th for Embark. I'll be brief in my presentation because I know that meetings go long, so I respect that. First, allow me to, I guess, present the team that comprises who bid this project. First of all, CNG Solutions, which I'm an owner, is a company that's been in business 5 years. In the CNG business, that's not an extremely long period of time, but people that are dedicated strictly to CNG, there weren't very many more than 8-9 years ago. It's kind of an oncoming new technology. It's not new, but it's like everything else that is economically driven. When oil prices are down, people aren't interested in CNG, except things that are people that embrace the environment, and buses, trash trucks, things like that continue on. Our employees prior to, or several of our employees prior to starting CNG Solutions had many years of experience in the high-pressure gas business, breathing air, nitrogen, things of that nature that lend itself to natural gas compression. And that's what CNG Solutions does. For the past 5 years, we've designed, we've constructed, and we've serviced CNG fueling stations strictly. That's all we've done. No other gases, no other conversions of vehicles. We weren't involved in any of that. It was strictly fueling stations. One advantage that CNG Solutions presents in this process is that we're local. Our response time in the event of an emergency or just service, our response time is in a matter of hours, not days. Companies that would be located outside the city, it's typically an airplane trip. So we're local and we're available. Our strategic partner in this process is a company called B&H Construction. B&H Construction is a company that has over 400 employees, and they provide Oklahoma Natural Gas with all of their line extension work statewide. what makes them strategic is that, first of all, the financial support that they would lend, whatever it might be. But secondly, they operate over 100 CNG vehicles in their fleet. And they own and operate 2 retail CNG stations. So they're very involved in the CNG business. They're very sold out. They do boring and all kinds of things like that to install these gas lines. And their endeavor is that anything that has a piston in it, they're trying to figure out how to make it run on natural gas. So, again, they are very involved in the business. Another integral part of our team is a fellow named John Bolte. He's a professional engineer. His company is Small Aero Engineering, and he is the CNG mechanical engineer of record for the city of Tulsa, Owasso, Norman, and Little Rock, as well as Seaboard Food. He will be acting in a consulting capacity and would interface with Wendell, the project engineer, and the city. So he's well-versed. Basically, that's all he does as well, are CNG stations. Secondly, we first became aware of this project about 2 years ago, and we're excited to have the opportunity potentially be involved. When the project was released for bidding, we obtained the bid documents, we assembled our team, and we started through the bid process. On May 16, we submitted the low bid. Part of that process required that we submit the bid through BidSync, which I had not used in the past and therefore was not familiar with it. There were several affidavits required in the bid process, which I know you all are aware of. I submitted those affidavits several days before the job actually bid. And at that time, B&H and our company, we were contemplating forming a separate entity to bid this project and then ultimately build it. During that process, we made the decision that that was not necessary, that we would bid it through CNG Solutions, LLC, which we submitted the bids, or the bid and the bid bond, with CNG Solutions, LLC. Being unfamiliar with BidSync, I didn't know how to retrieve the affidavit documents. So they were presented as CNG Solutions Partnership, and the bid and the bid bond were CNG Solutions, LLC. There was also a requirement for our involvement with disabled business enterprises. Again, not being familiar with that process, I filled the form out and answered the pending questions the way the conditions were at the time. I had contacted several disabled business enterprises to solicit bids. Most of them were involved in either the dirt work business or erosion control, which did not make up a significant part of the bid. I know the city's target is 5%, so in the process, the concrete subcontractor on this project, I have helped him during and after the bid process to fill out all the forms and all the stuff to be classified as a DBE through the Department of Transportation. Through the Department of Transportation. His bid comprises more than 5% of the project. So I'm not quite sure. There were some technicalities involved with that DBE document as well. Thirdly, some events that have occurred since the bid submission on May 16. May 23rd, there was a conference call between the city staff, the Wendell staff, which is the engineer, John Bolte, and myself, which was basically an interview in regard to our capability and capacity to perform this contract. On May 23rd, that same day, Oklahoma City staff received notice from the second bidder that they were protesting the project. May 24th, the next day, Wendell issued a letter of recommendation to award the contract to CNG Solutions. May 24th of that same day, contracts were issued to CNG Solutions with a cover letter instructing us to complete the documents and return them May 30, and that there would be a pre-work conference June 14th at 1 o'clock at the Embark offices. May 30, CNG Solutions returned all the executed documents as instructed. To complete the required documents, we had to instruct our insurance carriers to prepare and issue the required bonds and insurance coverages, which included a builder's risk policy. Both the bonds and the risk policy are project-specific, and therefore were engaged and made effective May 30, 2018. The carriers that issued the bonds and risk policy have submitted invoices for payments over $37,000. June 14th, received an email from the staff simply stating a protest had been filed and is under evaluation. Email was sent at 10:36 a.m. on June 14, but I was away from the office and did not read the email until about 12:30 on June the 14th. June the 14th, our team convened for the pre-work conference at 1 o'clock as instructed, which Mr. Bolte had traveled from out of town the night before to attend the meeting. The meeting did not happen. Further, we were not treated with regard, as no one instructed us that the conference had been canceled. Jason, forgive me, I can't pronounce your last name. Nobody's ever said it, so I can see.
Fairbrush.
Okay, very good, thank you. He met us in the lobby and instructed us that there was a protest in process and there would be no meeting. On June 28th, we received a letter from the city that due to errors found within the bids that the staff recommended, the board reject all bids and rebid at a later date. July 6th, here we are. The city knew of the protest filed on the project, yet issued the contracts with a recommendation from the project engineer, which required us to have the insurance carriers issue their respective services along with certificates. If bids are being rejected, my question is, why did this happen? In conclusion, our position is that we would be honored as local citizens to provide this facility to Embark and the city. We're prepared to begin the project and will provide a fueling station the city and its citizens will be proud of. That said, surely there's a way we can work this out. We created some clerical errors in a bid due to unfamiliarity with BidSync, and obviously the contracts should not have been issued under the circumstances, but was. Surely these minor issues can be resolved and proceed with the project by the city completing the contract that is on file and issuing a notice to proceed. That's all I had to say. I thank you. Are there any questions that I might answer?
No, Mr. Campbell, and upon advice of staff and legal, the original RFP was, in their opinion, not clear enough to accept the bids, and so we've had to reject the bids and go back out for new bids after we rewrite the RFP to more clearly define the issues we think are important in it, and that's what's on the agenda today, is to reject the bids and go back out for RFP.
Yeah.
It's certainly no reflection on you or anybody else. The entire project or the entire RFP was, in our opinion, not clear enough for us to accept the bids. And we'll clean it up and re-advertise and certainly hope that you'll offer another bid. And now I'm sorry for the confusion. I was not aware of the procedures by Public Works that when they get a bid, then they send out a letter that says they anticipate awarding the contract. It was not a letter saying we are going to award the contract, and it's anticipating. And when that letter went out, they did not notify the Cotpa staff that they had sent that letter. So I think that's a procedure that probably will be changed in the future. So I'm sorry if there was any misleading in that. They anticipate awarding the contract, and I'm sure that's how you felt when they sent copies of the contract to be executed.
Yeah.
But
I guess my question is that in order to return the documents that were sent out, I had to engage insurance carriers. I have invoices for over $37,000. So it's not just as simple as rejecting a bid.
well, but I think most of those insurance contracts, I don't know what effective date you requested. The effective date of the bond and everything should have been the date that contracts were executed, and they haven't been executed. So I would think your insurance companies would, once you provide them with that information that they were never executed, that you would not be responsible for paying those. But that's something you'll have to work out with them. But that would be my opinion on that.
Well, I hope it's that simple. If
Well,
it
I
is,
do
then
too.
there's no issue.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next item is approval of our minutes of our June 1st meeting. Any corrections or any questions by any of the trustees? And if not, a motion to approve.
I move approval. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Then we have minutes of our Joint Transportation and Finance Committee meeting, which was held on June 28th. Most of the Finance Committee will be on part of our agenda on the consent dockets on the financials for the current year. But if there's any changes there, let me know. If not, I'd have a motion to approve item B.
Move approval.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Consent docket, we have 7 items on there. The chairman only has, and Jason gave me an explanation of item E, but I think maybe an explanation of that for the trustees so that they fully understand what we're doing there.
Yeah, so item E is ratifying administrator's actions and approving addendum number 1 and rejecting bids for MB 1343, which is the Santa Fe parking garage improvements. And, really this is just an oversight. Typically an item like this would be on the items for individual consideration, and we included it on the consent docket in error. So just to clarify, that's not a change in process. We would typically have this on individual. But with this particular project, if you'll recall back in March, actually, the board approved the final plans and specs for the Santa Fe project. There were really 2 bodies of work that were associated with the project. One was related to garage improvements, primarily cosmetic improvements such as renovating the stairwells, changing some interior lighting in the elevator lobbies. We were also going to look at doing some roof repairs to the elevator towers. And then the other part of the project was basically a demo and complete renovation of about 18,000 square feet of tenant space that UCO will occupy. And as you'll recall, last month we actually, the board approved a letter of intent with UCO for that space. Well, as we've got into the project, staff has determined that, it's really, again, in the best interest of the trust at this point to move forward only with the tenant improvements and not pursue the other garage improvements at this time. So with that in mind, we're recommending just rebidding the project and keeping it specific to the tenant improvements only.
All right, thank you. Any questions? Any questions on any other items on the consent docket? And I would entertain a motion to approve our consent docket.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Items for individual consideration, item A and B are the financials, approval of Copta's fiscal year 2019 operating budget and the Copta 5-year capital improvement plan. Jason, I don't know if you want to briefly, a lot of the trustees were at the finance meeting and have heard that, but if you want to just touch on them, then.
Yeah, also on June 28th, the Finance Committee met, and to your point, Mr. Chairman, yes, we looked at both the operating budget and the capital plan that's before you today. The committee voted to recommend approval to the trust. But I can start just quickly with item 6A, and that is the approval of the 2019 operating budget. Just directing your attention to your packet, your memo, I think, does a pretty good job of summarizing yet breaking down the overall budget into each of the different enterprises or lines of business. And then you also have a more detailed breakdown of the budget following the memo. But to hit really just kind of a summary, the overall budget is $43,453,402. That reflects a $6.5 million or 17.8% increase over the previous year budget. And of course, most of that is attributable to our transit operations. Streetcar, for example, comprises $3.2 million of that increase. The addition of Sunday service is around $900,000. So that's where you see most of that increase in the operating budget. Of the $43.4 million, you'll notice 34.7 is for transit, 8.7 is allocated to the parking operations. And then within the parking operations, the budget does include an estimated $2.9 million of addition to the parking reserves. So again, we're expecting our revenues to exceed our expenses. And again, just worth noting that our parking operations, as you know, are completely financially sustainable. In other words, all the revenues that are generated from parkers in the garage and customers more than offset the expenses associated with operating the parking system. And so again, the Finance Committee recommended approval on June 28th. And then I'll go ahead and talk about item 6B. This is approval of the 5-year capital plan. And again, your item in your packet is laid out similar to the operating budget. You have a memo summarizing but then providing some additional detail on the capital plan. You have a attachment that actually looks at the total capital plan of $66,472,055 and how that's allocated and expected to be spent over the next 5 years. I will mention that all but $3 million of the plan is funded, so we're very pleased to be able to bring the plan to you with funding options. The plan does include items that the board is accustomed to seeing, such as fleet replacement, parking garage repairs, technology replacement, those kinds of things. But do certainly need to point out the most significant project in the capital plan, and that is a $24 to $26 million capital budget for the convention center parking garage. And we have a couple of items on the agenda today that will actually kick that project off. So with that, I'm glad to answer any questions on those two items.
All right, any questions? As I said, I think the majority of the trustees were at the Finance Committee meeting, and we got a good clarification of every item. So I would have a motion to approve item A and B.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item C is approval of a lease agreement with Red Earth Inc. and Santa Fe Parking Garage for the period of July 1st through June 30th, 2019, an estimated annual revenue of $12,638. Any questions by any of the trustees on that? If not, I'd have a motion to approve item C. All in favor? Item D is a joint resolution of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust and Copta for implementation and development of 2 Oklahoma City Boulevard Center and the assignment of roles, responsibilities, and authority related thereto. And I'm sure Jason has briefed each of the trustees, but this, I guess Kathy will kind of be in charge of coordinating everything we do with the parking garage and the housing that were around it. But if you have anything else you'd like to say?
Sure. Just for a little bit of additional background, as we're all aware, the Alliance for Economic Development and the team there have really provided an opportunity to leverage that parcel of land where the convention center garage is going to be located into, really, in my mind, a transformational development with not only residential units, but potentially some other retail, and then our parking garage. So it's really exciting to see what that particular parcel could be and is planned to be in the future. But as you can imagine, with a parking garage being built, the residential development, we've got the convention center being constructed, the hotel, and then we have the boulevard work being done. There's a tremendous amount of coordination that is going to have to go on. And that's really where the Alliance for Economic Development steps in. That's their area of expertise. And so what this MOU really does is it kind of outlines those responsibilities. And in summary, basically the Alliance will be responsible for coordinating, getting all of those different entities, architects, engineers, contractors at the table, making sure that the projects complement each other, and we're all moving forward in the same direction, again, as we build the garage and as other development occurs. But I did want to point out, too, that although the overall coordination lies with the Alliance, the MOU does specifically indicate that Cotpa and the Alliance will agree on the design of the garage, and that Cotpa is responsible for the construction, financing, and of course will own and operate the garage. So again, just I think a good way to go ahead and get in writing through an MOU what everybody's roles and responsibilities are, because there'll be a tremendous amount of coordination.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments on that? So then I have a motion to approve item D. All in favor? Opposed? Item E is a joint contract for architectural services between Cotpa and the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust and TAP Architectural Partnership for the Convention Center parking garage. And they were selected as the architects in our meeting on the parking garage, and I guess this is the beginning of getting things started.
Yeah, this is exciting. This is exactly the beginning of getting things started. Again, this is a joint agreement with Cotpa, TAP, and OSAD, and the joint agreement is necessary for reasons I just explained related to the MOU. But yes, just as a little bit of background, as you'll remember, in January of 2018, we basically worked with Public Works. They helped us manage the selection process for architects, engineers, and consultants. In May of 2018, the board authorized the administrator to enter into negotiations with TAP, and so the contract before you today is with TAP Architecture for a base amount of of $1,830,000, with provisions for additional services up to $625,000. Again, additional services primarily relates to the fact that there may be some additional design that is needed as we get into coordinating the development with the residential development, and how many parking spaces that development may need. So the total contract amount is $2,455,000. And then again, as you know, when we engage a TAP or an architect and engineering firm such as this, they'll be responsible for not only the design, but they'll be doing preliminary reports. They'll help us with construction management. They'll be doing cost estimates and basically everything you would associate a firm such as this one doing. Very similar to what TAP helped us with the Arts District parking garage. Again, the funding will come from parking capital reserves.
All right, thank you, Jason. Any questions? Then I'd have a motion to approve item E.
Mr. Chairman, could I
Yes.
just ask a quick question? So Jason, is this a 2-year project? I mean, is it scheduled to be completed in the summer of 2020?
It's, yes, it should be about 2 years. We looked at the timeline, and even during the interview process, the timelines that were presented to us basically have the garage coming online just shortly before the convention center construction is anticipated to.
And is the housing connected or a part of the parking garage? How does that, or is it separate? It's,
The concept had it, I believe, was separated, but, again, the final design, I guess, hasn't been done, so there's still lots of options and possibilities.
okay,
It would wrap, yeah.
I see. And the current size of the parking garage is anticipated to be about 800 spaces?
About 850 spaces.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, when the committee had all the presentations from the architects that, it would wrap it, it wouldn't touch the garage, other than, I think, some walkways maybe to allow the apartments to access the garage. And it, kind of a new idea. I mean, I don't think I'd ever heard of wrapping the garage, but the architects seem they can design something that will really look good around the garage, so.
Well, and as someone who sat down on that selection, just to go even further with it, the thing that excited me about this particular choice is the placemaking aspect to it. Like wrapping around that garage, but then, having a daycare, so then for the workers who work nearby, this workforce affordable housing, right? They can drop off their kids at the daycare. The architect's already thinking about ways for easy access to that daycare as well. The fact that we have this Boulevard Street and they named it Boulevard Place just clicked in this way. I think it will be this kind of iconic thing, but very walkable, very pedestrian friendly, and I think that's important because you have the park, the convention center. I sat on that selection committee and then immediately left for a teacher conference. And there's an Omni Hotel where a good chunk of that conference was taking place, and I was at the Hyatt, and we just saw teachers walking back and forth. And unfortunately, there in Dallas, the walk between the Omni and the Hyatt is a bit of a Legend of Zelda challenge. And so that was just fresh in my mind, having seen the walkability of our Boulevard Place and what we're thinking about the restaurant that they have kind of planned on the corner with a patio outside, a big space for a patio that gets you right over to that park. I don't know, it slows everything down in a way that I think we're really kind of trying to do there around that area. I was encouraged by it, it really was.
You're going to make a good politician, I can see that.
They tell me that good policy makes good politics, so...
Well, I didn't need a response, I just was telling you. All right, any other questions on item? Oh,
Yes, I had
Barney?
one on the additional services. So we're approving 850 parking spaces in the original bid, and the extra $600,000 is to do the architectural work for a potential 1,100 spaces or 1,400 spaces.
Yes. Yes, I believe it is 14.
So if they
Up
chose,
to.
if at some point in time it's decided that we need to increase the size of the garage, that's included in this
Right.
additional services.
And with the additional services, we may not spend all that, just depending on what extras are needed.
Okay.
I think that the garage is designed to accommodate, support of going up, so. All right, then I would have a motion to approve item E.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item F is change order number 2 for the exterior renovations of 1 North Walker parking garage. the change orders for $33,443.
Yes, so this is related to our project over at the Sheridan Walker Garage. We're optimistic that we'll be wrapping up towards the end of August on this project. We still have some work to do. This change order of $33,000, or about a 2.85% increase over the original contract amount, is really kind of a multitude of things. I can cover them pretty quickly, but we'll point out that they're detailed in your attachment in your packet from FSB. But basically, for that $33,000 in additional expense, we're going to be adding some emergency lighting in the elevator lobbies. There's some painting we're doing on the second floor of the garage. There's some finishes that we'll do in the lobbies to basically close some gaps between the ceiling and the wall, just to be able to give the lobbies a nice finish look. We're going to add a skim coat to the floors in the elevator lobbies, which is necessary basically to level them out and be able to make them look nice after many years of tile being added and replaced and added and replaced. And then we're also going to be repairing some of the CMU and drywall within the elevator lobbies and stairwell areas. The revised contract amount will be $1,271,816.
How close are we to completion of this project?
The schedule has us wrapping up August the 21st, so hopefully by the end of August we'll be finished.
Has the garage pretty much been open? I mean, all the areas that were closed, or?
Yeah, no, we haven't had the entire garage open. We moved several hundred parkers from that garage to the Arts District garage, and then we basically just kind of shuffled parkers remaining in the Sheridan Walker garage around as we work on different levels.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve item F? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item G is a change order for Union Station improvements of $14,741.
Yes, so this project here is, if you recall, was actually awarded back on December 15th to Homeco Construction. The project overall basically involved making some repairs to some roof drains, making some repairs to the stone siding, and then also some stabilization and foundation repairs, particularly, or actually right there on the east side of the building near the east entrance. This is an increase of 6%, making the new contract about $257,951. And what the change order includes is mainly two things, which is a removal and replacement of a section of sidewalk, and then also the contractors actually going to, the way it's been explained to me, actually have to go in, remove some of the stone on the building to be able to access one of the roof drains. The roof drains actually go from the roof through the wall, and there's a pipe and fitting that have to be replaced. The only way to access it is to actually get into the wall. So that's the reason for the additional expense. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any other questions on the project.
All right. There a motion for item G?
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item H, we're going to amend item H. In the wording in your packet, it said was rejecting bids and approving revised final plans. The amended is ratifying and approving addenda 1, 2, and 3, rejecting bids and authorizing the administrator to approve final plans and specifications and advertise for bids for the Embark CNG fueling station. So with that amendment, if there are any questions, Jason would be happy to answer them. If not, we'd have a motion to approve.
Move approval of the amended resolution.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All right, those are all our items for individual consideration. We have now ratification of payroll and vendor claims for the period of June 12th through June 26th. If there are no questions by any of the trustees, then I'd have a motion to ratify the claims and payroll.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Then our financial reports for the period ending May 31st. Year's about over for these financial reports, but
Yeah, so the financial reports that you have before you, correct, are through 11 months of the fiscal year, even though we're already into the new fiscal year. But just would direct your attention to page 2, and we've got a few things we can talk about on our transportation operations. Again, when you look at this year's budget to actuals, I would just say kind of the theme is consistency. When you compare our actual revenues and our actual expenses to what we had budgeted, that percentage variance has remained relatively the same throughout the year, so I won't get into a whole lot of the detail. But looking at operating revenues on the transit operations, I direct your attention to total operating revenue, the bottom line of that top section, and you'll notice that our variance is $349,409, so we're under our estimated revenues by about $350,000. That compares to being under by $64,000 last month. So the gap has widened a bit there, but I'd also direct your attention to the federal grant reimbursement revenue line, and you can see that $268,000 of that variance is just from our federal grant reimbursements. Last month when we looked at this, we were actually right on target. Our grant reimbursements were right at 100% of what we had expected. So we know how that varies throughout the year, but just wanted to direct your attention to that largest variance. And then looking at the total operating expenditures, we are about $1.7 million under what we had anticipated through 11 months of the fiscal year. We'll direct your attention to our fuel line item expenditure there. Our budget to actual actually shows $134,000 under budget, but it's worth noting that we actually have about $119,000 of expenses in fuel that really should have been charged through May that are going to be reflected on the June report. So that variance is really overstated. We're actually, through 11 months of the fiscal year, pretty much right on track with what we had budgeted for fuel. But finishing up with our total operating income, in terms of our revenues in excess of expenditures, were $1.1 million to the good through 11 months of the fiscal year. Then looking at page 3 on our parking operations, again, just looking at total operating revenues, you can see we're $240,000 more than what we had anticipated through 11 months of the fiscal year. Most of that overage is being driven by our monthly contract revenue and our interest revenue. We'll report that on our event revenue, you see we're under budget by $69,000. Last month when we looked at that through 10 months of the fiscal year, we were under budget by $143,000. So we gained some ground on budget versus actuals there in May, and optimistic that we'll retain that through June. Looking at our operating expenditures, total operating expenditures are $279,000 under budget, and that leaves us with operating income where revenues are in excess of expenditures by $3.6 million through 11 months of the fiscal year. Excuse me. So looking on River Cruise operations on page 4, again looking at total operating revenues, we're essentially right on track with budget. We're $6,700 over. Now, most of that is due to the fact that we did receive additional revenue that we hadn't budgeted from the Riverfront Redevelopment Authority. That's helping to offset some of the revenue shortfalls in general fares and specialty cruises. And again, as Jeannie's mentioned before, we've unfortunately had a pretty slow start to the season with the weather we had in April and May. Operating expenditures, again, are pretty much right on track with budget. I mean, they are $10,000 over what we had anticipated. But again, when comparing total revenues to total expenses, our revenues exceed our operating income by $55,000 through 11 months of the fiscal year. And then again, very similar story with Spokies. On the next page, page 5, total operating revenues, they do show to be $34,000 under budget. That shortage is due primarily to the fact that we did not receive the bike share sponsorship revenue that we had budgeted and hoped for. Again, how transit advertising is assisting us with that, and hopefully we'll see some sponsorship revenue in the next fiscal year. But do want to point out that the fees for the bike share usage are actually doing really well. We're 15,000 over what we had budgeted. So we're about 150% of our estimated revenue just on, the fees the bike share generates. And then on operating expenditures, in total operating expenditures, we're $4,200 over compared to budget. When you compare operating income or revenues in excess of expenditures, we're $22,880 to the good through 11 months of the fiscal year. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. When does this go to council for approval, or did it? The budget?
We'll send the operating budget to council for council just to simply receive the budget, and that will go in July or 1st of August, but we wouldn't do that until the trust approved it.
Okay, thank you. All right. If there are no questions, I'd have a motion to receive our financial reports.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We have 3 program reports. The first one is our streetcar report. Jesse?
Morning.
Great article in the paper this morning.
What's that?
Great article in the paper
It was a
this
good
morning.
article, yeah, it's great. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to jump right in. So we continue having our monthly meetings. During the month of June, we got with Oklahoma City Fire Department, Oklahoma City Police Department, and Embark and Herzog. We did a safety and threat and vulnerability and hazard analysis of the entire downtown loop. So we walked the entire downtown loop, taking a look at any issues that we thought might be potential hazard or a threat. And we're expecting that report from the police and fire department here in the next coming weeks. You can see Eugene, the Embark safety manager, and then Wendy Perez, the Herzog safety manager there, and then the police and fire a little further away there. Word of advice, if you ever decide to walk the 4.8 miles of the downtown loop, start early. It takes about 4 hours. And make sure you start early because it gets hot around 10 o'clock. So like I said, we're continuing with all of our committees. We're working with the TSA, developing our tabletops and field emergency exercises. We're continuing with our committee that's looking at the transit signal prioritization and the integration of that transit signal prioritization. We're continuing working on our ordinances. We're planning to take some of our ordinances to the July Traffic Commission. We're also working on our safety and security plans. Big news here is that we've got a date set for our readiness reviews, July 16th through July 20th. This is where our SSO, ODOT, and their consultant, Dovetail Consulting, come into town. We spend the entire week with them going over all of our safety plans. They requested over 42 documents, and that's kind of what we've been working on for the past year. And so we were able to submit all 42 documents that they requested, which is pretty rare. So we're pretty happy about that. And then, so anyway, they come in, take a look at all our documents, our systems, our plans, safety plans, and then at the end of the week they submit a findings list, right? So, I mean, their job is to come in and find findings, so we're anticipating that they will find findings, but we'll work as fast as possible to get those taken care of and move on about our business. So what this means is that the SSO and that consultant, once they join or once they come into town and have this readiness review, they'll be watching the project all the way up to when we begin revenue service, and they will issue a letter saying that that all the findings have been resolved and that they find no new findings, and then they will, basically that means that we are allowed to go into revenue service. And so just a word of warning, it usually can happen similar to like the article said this morning, that could happen a few hours before we anticipate going into revenue service, a week prior, if we're lucky, 2 weeks prior. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed and work hard to get them everything that they need. So also, big news, during June we got our blue car out on the Bricktown Loop doing integrated testing. So I've got a couple of pictures here. Again, same thing as last time. It's hard to find all the the good pictures because they're all great. It's good seeing the streetcar out in downtown. So we're checking clearances with the platforms. And so here we've got our system engineer and the construction group, and Embark was there, and Eugene with the safety Embark. So what we're doing here is we're checking the level boarding of the streetcar, and then also the clearance between the streetcar and the platform, making sure that they meet all ADA requirements, and that also allows us for the strollers, the bikes, to be able to level board on that center car there. So just in case you see construction going on some of these platforms, there were a few that were out of tolerance. The tolerance that they didn't hit was that the platform was actually too close to the streetcar, and so they're actually going to pull that back a little bit, so you may see a little bit of construction going on in Bricktown, working on platforms. That's what they're doing. So I've got a quick video here. This video shows us doing one of our SIT tests in Bricktown. We did this at about 3 o'clock in the morning so that we could actually shut down all of Reno between Joe Carter and E.K. Gaylord. So what this test is we have to test the traction power substations to make sure that the redundancy is there. So in Bricktown we've got 2 traction power substations. We need to make sure that if one of those substations go down, that we can still maintain service. And so what we're doing here is we're simulating service. We shut down one of the substations, and then we took 2 streetcars out on Reno, put them back to back, and then did full throttle acceleration away from each other so that they can pull maximum power from the OCS and make sure that none of the substations tripped any breakers or anything like that. So I'm going to show a quick video here. So you can see we had the help of the police department there shutting down Reno. So joint effort, big team of people to do these tests, but we're getting them done. It's kind of fun being out in Bricktown 3 o'clock in the morning when it's perfectly quiet and you can just shut down everything. It's pretty fun. You should try it sometime. Just get the police department to shut down the street for you. So completion of the Bricktown Loop, we're anticipating September of 2018. That did slip from the last date that I showed you last month. Essentially, all of Bricktown is complete. We've got a little bit of traffic signal work and signage to do west of the BNSF Railroad. There is one, the main thing that's basically leading to the September date is there is a signal pole on Oklahoma and Sheridan, and there's a long lead time item on that, and so it actually won't come in until September, but most of everything else is complete on the Bricktown Loop. This is a picture of the Stop 5 Surgical Park, wrapping up construction there. So this is showing the charging bars where the streetcar can stop and dwell and gain charge just north of Scissortail there. This is looking north, south of the Scissortail stop, looking north. Right now it doesn't have the glass in there, but it will have a similar to like a blue tint glass that will be installed, and then there will be wind brakes installed that also have benches attached to them for people to wait for the streetcar to arrive. And then the downtown loop, so we were working on milestone D, getting that wrapped up. So we've got substantial completion of the downtown loop for October of 2018. Final completion of all work, November of 2018. So what's going to happen is we're going to get passable track in October, and then we'll start doing the same tests that we're doing in Bricktown. We'll be doing those same tests on the downtown loop, getting all of our systems integrated testing done, testing the OCS, those types of things. And also the construction group will be working on punch list items leading up to November. And then toward the end of November, leading into December, we'll do simulated revenue service, and that will lead to us getting our final nod from the SSO. So I'll quickly go through this. You know, we've got all of our utilities clear. We're wrapping up our track demo and our track installation. You can see we're 85% complete with our track installation, so we're getting super close to getting that wrapped up. You can see there's just a little bit of track on the west side of 11th Street, south side of Robinson, south of 4th Street, and then right there on Broadway and 4th Street and 5th Street. If that's part of your route to get home, plan for delays because we're going to be shutting down those intersections so we can get those wrapped up. Vehicle procurement. So we have 5 vehicles, very exciting. This slide here shows the delivery dates and the acceptance dates. So we've accepted 4 vehicles. That means that Embark Herzog can actually take those vehicles out onto the NRT ourselves, and we don't have to have a Brookville personnel accompanying us on the streetcar. And we're expecting to accept vehicle number 5 there. Looks like I got a typo there. Sorry about that. The green vehicle shortly. So vehicle number 6, we're getting close to getting that wrapped up, getting it shipped to Oklahoma City. We've got vehicle 6 running through the water testing there, so it's getting close to wrapping up the testing. I'll move into the paint booth. We'll get it painted, and then we'll get it shipped to Oklahoma City. And then vehicle number 7, you can see that it's wrapping up final assembly, and then it'll, same thing, go through the water test, paint booth, and then we'll get it shipped to Oklahoma City. We're expecting vehicle number 7 in October. So I wanted to touch on some of the safety messaging that's going out. So you guys have seen the safety video for cyclists and on the Embark website, and then all of our social media. We're constantly pushing this information out on how to cross the tracks to keep your bicycle tires from getting lodged in the tracks. So safety messaging there. Same thing for pedestrians. There are pedestrian videos out. We've got several safety messaging on the website, also social media, pushing these safety messages out. Exciting thing is I get to show the safety messaging for motorists. Michael's been working hard on this, him and his team. So pretty excited to show this to everybody. I get the privilege.
OKC streetcars share the street with motorists, so keep the following in mind. Streetcars can't go around double-parked vehicles, so never park on the tracks. They have their own streetcar-specific traffic signals, so let them do their thing and obey your own. They can't stop quickly, so follow the streetcar at a safe distance and be prepared to stop. Use caution and always use your turn signals around a streetcar. When parking, make sure no part of your vehicle sticks out or over the white line to prevent damage. And always look before opening your door and exiting your vehicle.
Stuff.
Jesse,
Yes.
I love that you all are doing that. That's great. Good job. The Lost Ogle had an article about that exact last possibility of a person parking.
Yep.
What happens when someone's, just close enough to where that streetcar would hit them and they've parked inside?
So if they're parked over, like if they're doing the parallel parking and they're parked over the white line, part of our ordinances that we're taking to the Traffic Commission and then City Council for approval is that if they're parked over the white line, that gives us the authority to tow them.
Gotcha.
Right? So if they're parked over, we're not going to just crash into them, right, and knock their mirrors off. So during operation, the streetcar would pull up, notice that the car is over the line, the streetcar would stop, radio the supervisor, and we're working to work with the Oklahoma City Police Department to actually be able to tow vehicles under the Oklahoma City Police Department's authority, so that to cut down on time so that a police officer doesn't have to show up and give approval. So we're working on that. But the idea is that the streetcar would come up, stop, we'd radio the supervisor, they'd get a tow truck out there. We're working on the contract so that the tow truck would show up within 10 minutes. The vehicle would be towed out of the way, and then the police department would work out whether there would be a ticket or a citation or something like that. The main goal is to obviously get the car out of the way so the streetcar can maintain service and move along.
One thing to add to that is that as we think about the need to tow the vehicles and remove them from obstructing the streetcars, it's not like it just impacts one train, right? I mean, it stops the entire system. So that's why, really getting the vehicle removed and out of the way and resuming service is really important.
Yeah. I guess I should clarify also, it's not like we're just going to, there's a car in the way, just tow it, right? So the supervisors show up, we'll call a tow truck, the supervisor will start looking for the owner. We're not looking to give everybody tickets. We want everybody to have the opportunity to get the vehicle out of the way, but our main goal is to maintain service and keep the system running. So if the tow truck shows up, owner isn't available, the vehicle will get towed out of the way.
From your research, how long does it take? Has it taken other cities and the drivers in those cities before, eventually they all kind of catch on? Let's not.
Yeah. I think the people that live in the city, they catch on pretty quick. And also part of that messaging that we're doing, we've got tear-off stickers that we're going to start sticking on windshields. People that park in parallel, letting them know that that's also coming for people that don't necessarily get on social media and the website. But anyway, so the people that live here, they catch on pretty quick. What we're worried about are out-of-towners that aren't necessarily even familiar that we have a streetcar system. And so, that'll be something that we deal with through the entirety of the system running.
I like it.
Yep. Any other questions?
I want to thank you for hosting our committee meeting at the facility. It's quite impressive. You told us one of the cars that's going to be delivered is going to stop off at an APTA meeting or where and be on display?
That's correct, yeah. The streetcar number 7, our Redbud vehicle, it's actually, they're having a conference in Pittsburgh, which is near Brookville, Pennsylvania, where the streetcars are actually built. And so it's going to leave the facility there in Brookville, Pennsylvania. It'll stop off at that conference, and will be on display for the transit industry. They'll see it for the entire weekend, and then that truck will continue on to Oklahoma City to deliver our vehicle. Yeah, so just a short little side trip, show off. It's good stuff.
Any other questions? Jesse? Thank you.
Thank you.
Parking system report.
Good morning. This will be brief. Hard to follow Jesse. Couple updates on the Sheridan Walker garage improvements. We have some before and after with our new lighting. The lighting's about 95% complete. So that if you're asked, the inner lights are controlled by motion sensors, and they go down to 50% to save electricity, and then when they sense motion, they turn on. The outer perimeter lights go down to 10%, and those are controlled by photocells. So when it's dark outside, they'll come on. Here's one of our rehabbed lobbies. The work is not complete, but just like Jason was telling you, we leveled out the floor and are putting some paint down on the floor and nice LED lights. The new stripes on the parking spaces, the compact spaces did grow. They're wider now by 16 inches, I'm sorry. So I've gotten some comments that they're not wide enough, but we did make them as wide as possible, and we did lose 28 spaces, making the garage more customer-friendly. Our new public parking signs installed. This one's on Sheridan, and then Walker, and then that's it lit up at night. Sorry for the blurriness. And then just generally, you're going to be seeing us providing new instructions and wrapping all of our parking equipment. And that's the first one. That's a pay and lane, so that when you're driving up to an exit, cleaner, newer signs. That's all I have for you today.
All right.
Questions?
No. Okay. Thank you. River cruises and Spokies.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, the rain has certainly had an effect on our ridership. We were only able to complete 65% of trips in April and 80% of trips in May. And the issue with rain is not so much the rain as it is the amount of debris that the rain brings to the river and how it collects at the locks, and the difficulty that Public Works faces to remove enough debris that the gates will operate. So that's pretty much what happens there. It also has an effect on our riders per service hour when it's rainy. A lot of people just don't want to come out. But in June so far, it's looking very good. We're seeing some improvement. Charters are online. You see that big dip in April because of the weather. It's been made up for pretty much in May. March and May made up the difference. We're sitting right at about 23 charters, and it's consistent with the last 2 years for the year-to-date. Embark marketing staff has produced an aggressive social media campaign. We've gotten some very, very strong responses from. What you'll see in the June report is the effectiveness on our specialty cruises, which of course carry a premium price to attend, but they've been very popular, and we expect to see some improved revenues in that area. History Comes Alive, of course, this is the 11th year for History Comes Alive, and it continues to be a popular event on Saturday mornings. For Spokies, this is the first time in May we've actually completed what's considered an important benchmark for bike share in general, where you get one trip per day per bike on average. So every single one of our bikes in the fleet was ridden at least once per day in the month of May. Normally we don't see that until June, but seeing it in May, and I can tell you I've looked at the June numbers and it's well over 2,000 rides in June. So we're seeing continued growth and interest in Spokies, and hope to see it continue to improve as we get 3 more stations online later this year. This is another campaign that Embark Marketing and Bicycle Transit Systems have worked on. They're calling it Rider Profiles, and they actually contact one of our frequent riders and have an interview with them, collect some quotes from them, some video, lots of pictures. They've done 3 so far, and we hope to see more of those in the future because they seem to be helping to drive memberships in the system as well. Some of the events in June, Urban Land Institute, Oklahoma, did a Bike to Streetcar line. They actually got on personal bikes and Spokies bikes and rode the track, actually not on the track, that's kind of dangerous, but rode the route of the streetcar and finishing up at the Santa Fe station. In June, we also had the Full Moon Bike Ride, which is a once a month occurrence, and then Transportation Day at the Page Woodson development. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Congrats on all the progress with the Spokies. Seeing Steve in that photo made me recalls, I've been thinking a lot about, like his Killer Roasters, for instance, is right there in Uptown. And as I've come back from Dallas again, I saw a bunch of the random bike share things out and about. I don't quite like it. But I'm wondering, it started making me think about, are we going to be talking about expanding Spokies out? So someone who lives downtown hops on Spokies, their business is on Uptown, they get off, and this is a thing.
Yeah, we have a lot of interest from Uptown 23rd who have actually offered to pay the 20% share on a grant. Unfortunately, ODOT, who had control over that grant, did not feel that the streets were safe enough for cyclists. So we're hoping this drive from the planning department to improve safety on our streets, increase bike lanes, sidewalks, pedestrian and cycling access will make it more inviting for cyclists and make it easier. Uptown 23rd, as well as the Plaza District, the Wheeler District, we're constantly being approached. Class and Circle, we're constantly being approached by groups that are willing to kick in some of the funding to get some stations in those areas. Another thing that we're looking at is just purchasing bike racks or having these groups purchase bike racks, and then we would go to B-Cycle's safer option than dockless bike share, which is it's a smart bike, so you don't need a station, you just have the bike and it has the computer on the bike and you use an app to unlock the bike and you can lock it at any bike rack. So we may move in that direction. Even Stockyard City is interested in us putting some bikes in their area. So that's probably where we're going to move next. We do feel we need another station in Bricktown for visitors. Better than, probably close to 90% of our riders are visitors. They just walk up to the kiosk and rent a bike. And then the other 9 to 10% are people who actually are locals that buy monthly or annual passes and use it for commuting or just getting around when they're downtown. So we'd like another station in Bricktown to serve those areas. We'd love to expand out to the Meridian area. Just lots of places we'd like to go to help visitors get around, and then go with the bike rack and smart bike solution for our local commuters and recreational riders.
That's great, thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, that completes our agenda. Any items from any of the trustees? Oh, excuse me. Yes, we do need to receive our program reports.
Move to receive the program reports.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Motion? Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to mention that the new sign at the Sheridan Walker Garage that says public parking, I think is a helpful addition. And perhaps we might even consider adding it to other public parking garages. I like it, maybe just because we've talked about it so much, but I think it's a nice addition.
Yeah, in the capital plan that was approved, we do plan to add additional signs, just like the one you see on the Sheridan Walker. We think that's really going to be helpful, particularly with streetcar service, because one of the things we continue in our messaging is, there's five Cotpa parking garages along the route, and so hopefully this takes just the mystery out of, well, where do I park? Is it okay to park in this garage? So yes, glad you.
Yeah, and just looking at the inventory of parking available downtown, there are parking garages, whether they're city-owned or otherwise, that have parking, and I think going forward it's just more of an issue in terms of the total number of parking spaces available downtown. I think there's a sufficient supply. There just may be a congregation of more areas or more spaces in certain areas of the downtown, and with the streetcar, maybe that would assist moving people around and allowing them to find the most convenient in terms of available spaces to park at, and then with the streetcar getting to wherever they need to get to downtown.
All right. Any other comments, trustees? Jason?
I have a couple of quick comments.
Okay.
Did want to mention, Jesse had mentioned the readiness review for the streetcar the week of July 16th, and just wanted to mention that to us, we're very excited about it. I mean, it's certainly a major milestone in the project, and we're going to really glean some good information from this readiness review that's going to help our system be even better, right? Because these consultants have seen other systems in other cities and how they operate, and so although it's going to be a lot of work and a very busy week, we're looking forward to it from the standpoint of learning even more, best practices and such that should be incorporated into our system. So we're really excited. It's a major milestone. And the other thing I wanted to mention too, just really to clarify, is the 2019 the budget that the trust approved this morning did include funding for Sunday bus service. However, we still have the public process that we'll go through. So just as we do, any service additions and changes, we'll start scheduling public meetings. We'll have a public process. We'll bring back an actual agenda item for the trust to consider to, actually put that service into place. So just kind of a preview of what's to come. Now that we've approved the budget, we'll work on the public process and actually getting ready for the launch of the Sunday service after the first of the next calendar year.
If you know anybody who wants to drive a bus, be sure to send them to Jason. He's looking for more people to drive buses.
It's really exciting. I mean, we're growing. We have additional positions. Lots of additional positions to fill. So it's an exciting time.
All right. Then thank you all, and have a great summer, which we're right in the middle of, and we'll see you at our next meeting. We're adjourned.